This meditation is designed for those who feel like mindfulness is a difficult challenge, especially when it comes to breathing. People talk about mindfulness and breathing meditations as if it's a simple task and the easiest type of meditation to do. This isn't true. Mindfulness can be a really big challenge for a lot of people. Being in the moment when our minds are constantly yelling at us about what we've done and what we need to do is a really hard thing to commit to, let alone to succeed at. So here are some easy ways to do mindful breathing in a more simplistic way that might have more success for those who find it hard to stay in the moment. Start by finding a comfortable position. This doesn't have to be a classic meditation position. It can be anything that feels good. Oftentimes, when you do meditations, they'll tell you to sit up straight or lay flat, and that's not always the best thing for everyone. So I encourage you to find a position that gives you the most relaxation and the least amount of pain. If you need blankets or pillows, that's fine. And if you're still struggling to stay comfortable as you begin to meditate, don't feel like you're locked into a position. Remember, you can always move, because what's comfortable in one moment might be uncomfortable in the next. You also don't have to remain perfectly still. Everybody just says focus on the breathing, how it feels going in and out, and while that can be extremely helpful, it doesn't help you if you have an itch or a twitch, or just need to shake something out of your body in the middle of a meditation. You know what? There's no shame in needing to move. Now, we are going to start out by trying to do some conscious breaths. Generally, people say to either breathe in through the nose, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale it through the mouth. This kind of circular breathing can be very helpful, but it doesn't work for everyone. If you have a cold, for example, breathing in through the nose can be a real challenge, in which breathe in through your mouth. Again, it's not a matter of shame to not be able to do it in the exact way a meditation instructor or recording is telling you to do it. But just try to breathe in a way that feels relaxed for you. If you need to count out the breath, say 5 count inhale, 3 hold, and 6 exhale, feel free to do that. If that feels unnatural to you and you need to have more normal rhythmed breathing, that's okay too. Try these few things to help you focus on the breathing. Now, a lot of times when you do meditative breath, they tell you to try to bring the air to fill up your abdomen. If you are able to breathe down into your diaphragm, but you feel like it's inconsistent and you get distracted, try taking whichever is your dominant hand and placing it on your belly. Should be right about where your belly button is, or a little lower. The goal here is to expand your belly enough that you can focus on the feeling of your hand moving without actually moving your hand. And again, you don't have to do this perfectly or even consistently, but it can be very helpful to place your hand where you are trying to inflate. If you have a hard time with your diaphragm breathing, you're welcome to put your hand on your chest and feel your ribs expanding and contracting. Just remember, there is no right or wrong way to breathe, so long as you continue to do so. Another thing that's often not said during mindfulness breathing meditations is that the position you start the meditation in isn't necessarily the best one to help you take those deep breaths. So again, if you need to move in order to really fill up your abdomen with air, do so. And if it changes throughout the meditation, great. That just means you're paying attention to what your body needs, and the mindfulness is working. The last technique to help you with your breathing exercises is plugging up holes. Now, this might sound odd because in order to breathe, you need to have access to your nostrils and your mouth. But sometimes it can be very helpful to actually affect how you're breathing. Now, of course, you don't want to plug all of your holes at once, but if you're having a hard time not breathing through your mouth and the goal is to just breathe through the nose, cover your mouth. Or if you feel like you want a more interesting balance to your breathing to hold your attention better, try rhythmically changing which nostril you breathe in. You start this practice by plugging one side of your nose by pushing down on the outside of the nostril, and then on the next breath you switch sides. This back and forth activity during breathing exercises can be extremely helpful because it keeps you active in the moment. If you would like to try any of these techniques for a longer amount of time, feel free to pause this recording. Another common mindfulness meditation technique is focusing on one thing in a room and really engaging all your senses with that object. Now, this can be something you see at a distance or something that you're holding in your hands. For some people, engaging the senses with an object is very centering and does keep you in the moment. But for other people, this can be a huge challenge. If it is hard for you, there are some simple changes you can make to help you with mindful observation and experience. For one, if you're staring at something, say, across the room or from a distance, and trying to mindfully take that item in, it might be difficult to stay focused on it. A lot of people can't really stay mindful by just observation alone. It can be okay to stop a meditation, get up, and go get the item, or just be closer to the item. If you really want to experience something, you have to do it in the way that's the most helpful for you. If you're holding an item and you're finding that you can't really engage with it the way you want to, maybe that's not the item for mindfulness on that day. Even if it's worked in the past, maybe it's just not going to happen today, and that's okay. Instead of struggling through and trying to find the perfect way to connect to the item you've chosen, it's okay to pause meditation, or even get up in the middle of one and exchange your item for something that might work better. And if that new item doesn't work, it's okay to switch multiple times. The nice thing about meditation recordings is you can go back and restart a section. If you are doing this observation experience mindfulness, it is important to remember that there's no right or wrong way to take in an item. Unless you're hurling it at someone, trying to break something and injure yourself or someone else, however you choose to experience something is in your control. Remembering that can be extremely helpful. The last type of mindfulness meditation I'm going to talk about today is about mindful activities. This is a very common activity to do when you're trying to really get mindfulness in your day-to-day life. When you're doing simple chores like the dishes or cleaning your bathroom, it can be really good to slow down and experience what you're doing in all the ways possible. The textures, the scents, the sounds. Taking it all in is a great way to be in the moment. And yet, it can be a real challenge, especially after a couple of minutes of doing this. It can feel repetitive and you can lose track of where your mind goes as you're doing something that you've done many times before. If that happens, it can be very frustrating because you set an intention and then you feel like you can't follow through. There are some tips for mindful activities that I have found very helpful. The first is, don't do the ordinary. Save mindful activities for something that you don't do every day. If you're a gardener, don't try to mindfully garden. You do that so often that you're used to that activity. Wait until you're fixing a chair or mopping the floors, something that isn't a day-to-day experience. If you are looking to mindfully do a chore that you do often, it can be good to switch things up. Try using your non-dominant hand to do the activity. That can make it a really interesting challenge. And challenges do tend to hold the attention better than the ordinary day-to-day goings-on. If, say, you're doing the dishes and you're washing things that you've washed many times before, try to experience those things or those actions in a way that you wouldn't ordinarily do. If you're loading a dishwasher, do it backwards. If you're sweeping a floor, start in a room that would be the opposite of where you usually start. This kind of switching up releases you from the mundane psyche into an active experience. Now, even these suggestions aren't going to work for everyone. And if you continue to struggle with mindfulness, just remember one key fact. There's no way to meditate wrong. Anything that makes you feel at peace and in the moment is mindfulness. Even if it's a strange way of experiencing it, enjoy the trying. Enjoy the journey. I wish you all the best of luck in your mindfulness practices. And thank you so much for listening to my suggestions today.